Hi everybody, welcome to a new episode of Vision Business Talks. Today I'm excited to host Joe Jordan, who is co-founder at AdClear.AI, and he's been also an associate investor at Supernode, which is a VC focused on seed stage investments. I will let Joe introduce himself first, and then we will delve deep into our conversation.
Thanks, Giovanni. Pleasure to be on. I'm Joe, co-founder at AdClear. We are an AI solution that automates marketing compliance, starting with fintechs, essentially helping brands, marketing teams to release content in seconds rather than days, and sort of streamline the bottleneck process and automate that part of it. Prior to co-founding AdClear, I was a seed stage investor at Supernode, which, as you mentioned, is a seed stage fund investing globally, where I spent 3.5 years leading deals from sourcing to completion before jumping to the operating side.
Gotcha. Okay, Joe. So I would be very curious to start, let's say, from the path that brought you where you are now, right? So, for example, a very important part of your life, as you and I highlighted, I was able to see Supernode. So, what brought you there? What brought you to the world of VC investing, and what you learned from that helped you maybe, founding AdClear.AI at this point in your life?
Yeah, so I started another company at university called
Uh-huh.
Student, which was kind of essentially an on-demand job platform connecting students with hospitality employers, so bars, restaurants on campus and in the local area. And I always knew I wanted to start a business at uni. I don't know why, but I just wanted to. So I got some grant funding, did that for a few years. It wasn't venture backed, so it wasn't a super fast growth company or anything, but it taught me a lot about fundamental principles around starting your company, sort of what to do, what not to do,
Mm-hmm.
co-founding team, all that sort of good stuff. And at the end of university, I decided that after 3 and a bit years, I wanted something fresh. And so, yeah, I was very fortunate to just apply on LinkedIn, cold, really. I think it was through a recruiter actually initially, and land with Supernode, which at the time I think we're looking for someone slightly more senior, but they liked my entrepreneurial experience, liked me in the room, and offered me a 3-month internship, which turned into a full-time role thereafter.
Okay.
So yeah, that was my path in.
Okay, got you, Joe. For example, like you mentioned, obviously that experience was very important for you to understand what was good to do and what was not. So a sort of playbook, for the entrepreneur. Would you like to recall some like couple aspects that you still like point yourself like to do or not do, especially with your current venture, and that you
Yeah.
think like maybe VCs are on the lookout for to distinguish good entrepreneurs from bad entrepreneurs in the way they,
Mhm.
run their startups.
Yeah, I think all entrepreneurs are good entrepreneurs, just because they're trying to do something which is
Gotcha.
incredibly difficult. But in terms of like learning, so I think one thing that's been constant throughout starting my company and then as a VC is just the importance of the team. And this isn't anything groundbreaking; it's pretty obvious. But when you experience co-founder relationships breaking down, you witness what that does to the business. You witness a lack of trust, or skill sets that aren't complementary, or infighting. It really, that's the number one reason that companies fail ultimately. So, um, on that side of things, it's picking someone or people that you deeply trust, people that have the same values as you, want the same
Yes.
thing. Ideally, you've known for a long period of time. That's kind of some of the do's, I guess. And that's both from starting my first company, what I've seen in venture, and then starting AdClear. Essentially, is picking the strong co-founding team.
Got you. And I think, yeah, this is a crucial topic, especially because, sometimes some great ideas are born, in college when you have just met, people, friends. And so, for example, I have a tricky question for you. So, what would be a criteria for you for to decide if somebody that you, for example, just met in college, but you feel you have a great idea you could build with him together? How would you decide if he's actually a good co-founder or not, given like the premise we have just laid down?
Yeah, I mean, depending on who he or she is, I would say just do it. Like, just launch, not
Okay.
necessarily the business, but work on the idea together as like a project or case study. See if your working patterns align, because it's not a bad thing on either side. They just might not align in terms of how
Hmm.
you like to work and how this person likes to work. So yeah, just try and the first thing I would do again, something else I've learned very from the very early stages to speak with whoever you think will be interested in what you're
Gotcha.
building and just get kind of market insights. And whether that it could be a structured conversation or it could be just someone you meet on the street, like just take all these opportunities to talk about your idea with people who are relevant stakeholders and see what learnings you can extract. And I would just start with that as a project, a
Hmm.
research project, if you like, with that person and see if you guys vibe. And if, well, you can do two things actually. You can see if you vibe, but you can also see if it's actually a valuable business idea what you're thinking about building, or whether you need to slightly pivot or just refine your messaging, which happens continuously.
Totally agree, Joe. Totally agree. Amazing. Thank you. So, getting back a second to Supernode Global, I'm curious. So, what are, for example, the investment criteria that you used, that you are using since like you're currently there for your last week now to, choose which companies to invest in, and also what are the investments that you prefer that are currently in your portfolio, in the firm's
Mhm.
portfolio?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we did a whole project recently on sort of this framework piece. Um, so I think the way we look at it is that you get, for us at least, we get over 1,000
Mm-hmm.
pitches
Mm-hmm.
a year, inbound, outbound, whatever that might be, 1,000 deals logged on our CRM, and we only do 8 to 10, let's say, or 6 to 10, let's say. Eight is what we're aiming for. So to get through the process, um, and yeah, be in that 1%, you really have to stand out, be an outlier, be differentiated from everything else that we're looking at. Um, and so the way we kind of coin it is we're looking for transformative businesses, transformative teams, and transformative products. Essentially, think products that are going to redefine a market and a team that is able to execute strategically and has a unique insight to this particular problem or space that they're attacking. Um, at pre-seed, the team is more important than anything else because you have to over-index on it really because you don't have much else. But at seed, there's a bit more data, not a lot, but still a bit more data on revenue, traction, those sorts of things that help you get to sort of evaluation criteria. But yeah, we typically sort of split it into team, product, and market, and then
Mm-hmm.
assess different parts of those categories to understand whether this is a transformative opportunity.
Okay, okay, got you. And so, for example, I looked through the Supernode portfolio a bit, and like obviously we are in the AI trend moment. So the majority of companies that are building right now are based on AI or contain AI in their name, and obviously there is a lot of potential behind that. Also, we're going to talk about the company you have founded, but like, do you think also that AI hides a sort of a bubble because not everything is gold. There are a lot of threats behind also these technologies, and most importantly, I think a lot of the promises or potentials that are promoted most of the times by some companies in this field are very hard to materialize or are not actually that groundbreaking. So I would like to have your point of view on this topic since it's very, very crucial at the moment, especially for investors. I would like to have the opinion from, both an entrepreneur in the field like you and somebody who values these types of companies on the other side.
So when you say AI companies, are you specifically relating to sort of generative AI companies?
Yeah, I would say like the more general word of all companies that via generative AI or just machine learning processes promote themselves as using AI in this in their business. I mean, probably this is the question, one of the questions that can distinguish, real AI products from non-real AI products, because many of them use AI just to, hide a sort of intelligent machine behind that actually is not that intelligent, and
Mm.
others actually do. So yeah, it's a very open question. I mean, the AI definition I wanted you to expand on is the most general one. I mean, we see a lot of companies that have AI in their name or in their business description. So do you think that this is actually a bubble? Is it gonna explode? Or if not, what is the true value that you see behind all this what it is, unfolding in front of us?
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless of the technology, it's more about the problem that you're solving or the value that your company is bringing. So I think the difference between, I mean, yes, there, if you look at the numbers, the investment in generative AI companies, the growth of these companies, which suggests there's a bubble, and there might well be. But I think if you compare generative AI to crypto, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still a strong believer in the foundational technology um, that crypto provides and Web3 as a market provides. But that was definitely a bubble in the sense that businesses were being created that didn't provide much value, because they had Web3 in their pitch deck, they were able to um, get funding and grow. Whereas I think with generative AI, at least, um, there's more tangible, immediate value that not only founders can see and investors can see, but more importantly, their customers can see. So you can launch pilots and close deals with potential customers probably in easier than you could with crypto and Web3. And the reason for that is because you can provide immediate value, because I believe that generative AI does unlock things we couldn't do before. So in AdClear's case, automating compliance, in particular the evaluation of financial promotions, was done completely manually before. And so generative AI enables us to mirror those workflows and do it in seconds as a co-pilot. So I think that's a good example of generative AI providing immediate value. And okay, it might, in some instances, it might not be a deeply technical solution, but I think some investors are moving away from sort of technical moats and more towards actually branding and market positioning, because I
Mm-hmm.
believe that if we look at LLMs, it's a bit of a race to the bottom in terms of it's a commodity. I think in 15 years, everything will be a generative AI business, like everything is an internet business now. So it's more about how can you leverage the internet, or in this case, how can you leverage generative AI to build a really valuable business. And that's your moat. That's the problem you're solving, the insights you get as a team, and how quickly you can grow in this particular space is your moat, rather than the technology. Now, I'm not saying there's not anything complex or interesting about the technology that generative AI businesses are building, but at least in the pre-seed seed stage, I don't see that as a as a moat uh, until longer term, when they're able to gather data from their customers and then can leverage that technology. But in the short term, at least, it's how, for us, for example, AdClear, it's how we position AdClear as the number one most accurate compliance tool for FCA regulations, for example, and how we can deliver immediate value by essentially reducing the time it takes to publish content from days into seconds. That's kind of our moat, our competitive advantage. And longer term, as we position ourselves between the regulators and these brands, we become a valuable business in that sense. And as a result, gather data, build technology that is valuable. So it's sort of like a loop.
Totally agree. Yeah, get your point. Get your point. And so, like on this line, let's switch to AdClear.AI. So I'm curious to know like how everything started. So the inspiration, the team, and especially what made you say, let's do it. I mean, the trade-off between a safe and cool job as it is in the VC world compared to the one of an entrepreneur that is extremely like involving, but at the
Mm.
same time also risky. How did you go through that?
Yeah, it's definitely I guess high risk, high reward, right? I think it's two things from a personal and professional background perspective. I think for me, and I don't know why or where this came from, but I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I had always when I was growing up, done the classic kind of lemonade stands or selling sweets at school,
Yeah.
or buying and selling clothes, these sorts of things in my early years and then teenage years. And then at university, obviously, took that on, formalized a little bit, got some grant funding, and set up StuTemp. Um, and then even in VC, like I always saw it as a route to do my own thing again, um, but an amazing route at that to see and absorb all the learnings from the amazing founders in our portfolio and the amazing founders that had a pleasure to meet and understand. Um, but for whatever reason, I always had the itch, and I was never comfortable just being in VC as an investor. Even though it's like you say, it's a pleasure, a privilege even to have a job in this space in this sector. But
Mhm.
ultimately, I don't know, it wasn't enough. So that was always bubbling away. And then from a professional uh, perspective, in terms of the opportunity, I had a family member in regulation who told me about how they currently review every single radio advertisement you hear, for example, against the guidelines manually. And so I used that to launch proof of concept and demonstrate the value AdClear could provide, um, and demonstrate the technology we could build. And as part of that process, I looped in my long-time friend and now co-founder Donny, who had always had the same itch as myself,
Mm.
um, to sort of build this, and then well, to build a business, but I looped him to build this AdClear, and then Cam, our amazing CTO, who I'd known since university, essentially brought him in to help us build what we wanted to build. And after that proof of concept, we thought, okay, we can prove the value here. We can do what we said we were going to do. What market's the most attractive for this? And by, like I said, speaking to as many people we thought would be interested in leveraging our network, speaking with fintechs was the hook and the market we wanted to attack first. So that's how we started getting going. And then, after learning about how to sort of reach out cold, how to leverage your network, how to do all
Yeah.
these kind of hustly hacker things, we managed to get in the room with Plum Finance, a money savings and investments app, and sort of launch a design partnership with them. Um, and then in the end, managed to sign them as our first customer, and they've been an amazing first customer, design partner and customer, and have really helped shape the product direction and how it's used today. And we use that to then sign Credit Spring, as well, and sort of rolling from there. So yeah, it's been quite a journey, but that kind of summarizes both from a personal and professional perspective why I made the jump.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like now I'm very curious to dive deep in what AdClear actually does. So I'm curious to understand how big of a problem is regulation compliance for marketers? How big is it of a problem for like entrepreneurs or businesses in this space? And so how AdClear comes into place. So if you want to provide a practical example, maybe even talking about Plum, you said your amazing first client, to give a very practical and fresh perspective on what your business is doing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you what Plum and Credit Spring currently use AdClear for. So
Yes.
right now, essentially, they have a current process in place which requires marketing or product teams or CRM teams, essentially any team that is involved with producing and releasing external facing communications. They have to send those communications. It could be like I said, an email, it could be a social media post, it could be an out-of-home advertisement on the tube. They have to send these external comms to compliance to review at this point entirely manually. And compliance, obviously, they have mission critical things they need to be getting on with. They're the unsung heroes in a sense, where they have KYC, AML, all these other key issues that is critical for the running of any regulated business. So what happens is there's a bit of a bottleneck where marketing and product teams want to get content out the door as quickly as possible, because time is money in that sense, in that they really want to react to trends. They really want to essentially post content that's relatable to market news or activity, but they have to wait for manual review, which can take, from our experience, the SLAs are typically 2 to 5 days, which slows down the execution essentially, and ultimately they can't hit their growth targets around customer acquisition, lifetime value, and increased marketing. So what compliance are always up against is that pressure of reviewing materials quickly and telling marketing compliance sometimes the same feedback, I'd make this rich one bigger, or sometimes different new feedback depending on the product. And it's repetitive and it's manual, and it's a sort of, they have to make sure everything's compliant, but marketing want to get everything out the door quickly. So you see the bottleneck. So what AdClear is used for essentially is marketing will create their piece of content as they would normally. Let's say it's a 30-second video, and instead of using Jira, Airtable, Notion, these other kind of general tools to send to compliance to review manually, they upload it into a marketing compliance workflow that is built specifically for this. And then the secret sauce, the engine that is AdClear.AI, analyzes that video and provides instant feedback of change this, change that, depending on, for example, in Plum's case, if they're doing an investment product, COBS 4.2. It's not clear, it's not fair, it's not misleading, all these checks. And that's built, I mean, get into it later, but that's built on proprietary data, public data, and also our advisory board that we have. So essentially, AdClear provides that instant feedback. Marketing product teams can change their content in seconds rather than days, and publish their piece of content, knowing that they've remained creative, they've kept their speed, but crucially, they're compliant. And it's a safety net and peace of mind for compliance. You don't want to spend 25% of their time reviewing every single financial promotion that marketing want to release, essentially. And then ultimately for C-suite, so CSOs, COOs, partnership people, essentially this means faster growth, so increased ROI or lower CAC from marketing spend, and then also reduce costs by streamlining operations, reducing the workload for compliance, because AdClear is an extension of their team, and compliance can focus on other regulatory issues. So essentially, it's about faster growth and reduced cost for them.
Extremely interesting. Thank you, Joe. I'm curious to understand. So, for example, on AdClear website, you say you focus on the financial services industry in particular, right? But I'm curious to understand. So, AdClear, besides, let's say, the regulation of, for example, marketing standards for the financial services industry, does it take into account also, for example, specific corporate policies, for example, in the case of Plum, that go beyond that scope and make these type of suggestions that your software gives even more personalized to also the persona of the firm?
Yeah, you're exactly right. So it's essentially we have a generalized, let's say, FCA model, the Financial Conduct Authority model, which analyzes content against the relevant sections of the handbook, and that's fine. That's really useful in terms of telling you, generically what to change. But what we offer for each client is a bespoke version of that that's trained on their internal guidelines and their corporate policies, essentially because the risk tolerance between firms differ. So some firms are more happy to be a bit risky, be more aggressive with their marketing. Other want to be a bit more vanilla. And so we're able to tweak the models based on that.
Okay. Amazing, Joe. Okay, Joe, thank you so much again for participating. Hope to hear from you, soon on the updates on AdClear. It was a pleasure hosting you. And thank you to everybody viewing this episode. To the next one.
Thanks, Giovanni.
Bye bye.